by Sam Roberts. April 23rd, 2009, 5:28 p.m. Click below to listen. Following is the script of the weekly Only in New York audio podcast. Listen at left or download the MP3 to a portable player. Browse a list of other Times podcasts here. I asked readers the other day whether they would ever consider leaving the city. The question was posed in the context of the recession, but it unleashed a broader emotional outpouring that amounts to a love letter to New York. Sure, those who weighed in are a self-selected group. Times readers with ready access to the internet. People who aren't working 2 or 3 jobs and could take the time to read my post and to respond. And, yes, plenty of readers said they were fed up with high taxes imposed by political lowlifes and were packing to leave, or wanted to if only they could sell their house or apartment, or had already fled the city and didn't miss it, or that New York is no longer the city they remember, or no place to raise kids, or even a dog, that to survive you've got to be rich or young. Leaving New York, one reader commented, is almost like having served a prison sentence for a crime that was not committed. New York is living off its reputation and not reality, said another. People wear the New Yorker badge with unwarranted honor, a sign of some sort of victory. Some readers sounded downright desperate. Even if they could leave, where would they go? Which was precisely the point made by so many other New Yorkers who live in the city or who left and can't wait to move back. From all the comments on here, a reader wrote, "One would think that quality of life boiled down to disposable income and square footage." Said another, "It comes down to this. Do you want to live in the greatest city in the USA? Or do you want to save $2,000 a year and live in the suburbs of St. Louis? It sure sounds like some of you are disappointed in New York because you never figured out how to live here." To me, one wrote, "All these people leaving the city because it's not as easy as it once was for them is just a natural Darwinian process that thins out the wussies from the New York City herd." Still another placed the high costs in context. Yes, everyone knows that living here is expensive, but there's a reason. It simply adds up to demand. It's expensive to be here because so many other people want to be here as well, because the city has so much to offer. Ray, who moved to New York in 2007 after living in California for 20 years, suggested people try living elsewhere first. Yes, he said, in some other places government costs less, but it also does a lot less. Yes, homes cost less, but you have way less around you. Sure, the people are nice, but they're not really as interesting. Sure, the weather is great, but even 250 days of continual sunshine can be a bore. And listen to Hitchcock, who's moving back to the city this summer from the suburbs. "I hate having to drive everywhere. I hate cashiers putting my few purchases in 20 bags at the supermarket. I hate not being able to walk anywhere because oncoming traffic will kill you. I've gained 25 pounds. Keep paradise. I'll pay to live where I can walk and run into a dozen friends and acquaintances on the street instead of having to hole up in my house with the windows closed because the neighbor's idiotic adolescent son is blasting hip-hop music and screaming obscenities at the top of his voice." Chris couldn't wait to return from low-tax Florida. New York state and city taxes, Chris wrote, are a small price to pay for the culture, amenities, services, public transit, all of which the rest of the country sorely lacks. A bad day in the Village, Chelsea, Williamsburg, Park Slope, the Upper West Side, Gramercy, Carroll Gardens, and a zillion other parts of New York City is better than the best day I ever had living in Miami. Several responses were positively poetic. The thought of leaving the city, while it becomes more attractive with each passing jobless day, is breaking my heart. I love this town, with its post-apocalyptic standard of living, the cost of every breath of air, the maze of its elusive, forever out-of-reach opportunities, with the mirage of success and reality of poverty, the beat-downs and drug infestation, on the streets and in the mind, with its sick and homeless and desperate and repressed. I love it all. I'll take it. I am never moving out. Barbara Jones pleaded, "I'm going to lose my job soon and I'm going to have to leave. Where do I go?" Someone, Please tell me where I can find the vibrancy, the humor, the sarcasm, the irreverence, and the beauty of this city. New York City is my reality, one reader wrote. The world is a cactus and New York City is its flower. The Only in New York podcast will be on hiatus for a few months. We'll be back in September. Thanks so much for listening. For more coverage on the human side of the recession, visit the Living with Less guide, where readers can share their photos, moods, and suggestions for weathering the economic downturn. Share. Melinda Smith, April 24th, 2009, 1:13 p.m.
Reading Scribbled weekly on in New York, the package traditional app download episodes per play, browse already start time package here. I also need the will they will ever consider leaving the city. The occasional pulls in the context of religion, but it only broad emotional porting that amounts to overlap to New York. Sheltered through inner soul, stereotypical time to read or read related action on the internet. People who are working 2 or 3 jobs. And could take the time to read my post and to respond. And yes, plenty of readers said they were part of the high-tech imposed by political right. And packing to leave were many people and they could sell their house or apartment or had already pledged assistance to the mission. Or that really no one could see they remember were no place to raise a kid or even a dog. That was to survive you got to be rich when young. Living in New York won't need a command. It's almost like having served a prison sentence for a crime that was not committed. New York needs living up to its reputation and not really said on people wear the New York badge is unworn and a sign of some sort of victory. Some leaders sound down on that party, even if they could leave, they could. Which way precise the point made by so many other New Yorkers who live in the city or left and can't wait to move back. From the comment of one here, read or look, one would think that the quality of life boils down to disposable income and the skill-free. Thread or not, it comes down to this: do you want to live in the great city in the USA, or do you want to save $2,000 a year and live in the suburbs? Opportunity to read should sound like some of you disappointed in New York because you have never figured out how to live. To me, one know all these people living in the city because it's not as easy as it once was for them. It's just a lateral down part that is seen out reach from the New York City hub. Still not the place the High Court in the context, yes, everyone knows that the living here is expensive, but there is a religion. Simply after demand is expensive to be here because so many other people want to be here. Because the city has so much trouble. Ray moved to New York in 2007 after living in California for 20 years. So that the people are trying to really rest first. Yes, he said in some other place called Cotrollet, but it's also the oral yes on Cotrollet. But you have a way to rest around. Sure, some people are nice, but they are not really as interesting. Sure, the widely created, but even 250 days of continuous can be bored. And listen to Chicago, from moving back to the city this summer from the suburb. Having to drive everywhere. Occasionally putting my few purchases in 20 at the supermarket. Not being able to work anywhere because oncoming traffic will kill you. Again, the 25-pound key part that I pay to live where I can work and run into large friends and things on the street. Instead of having to hold in my house with the window closed because the neighbor idiot at the sun is blasting hip-hop music and screaming at the top of his voice while playing video game. Chris couldn't wait to return from Lotus, Florida. New York State and the city take this role, a small price to pay for culture, amenity, service, public transit all over the feature rest of the country so relaxed. Better than the Beach, Chelsea, Williamsburg, Park Slope, and the Upper West Side Grammar, Carroll Garden, and the resilience are the parts of a New York City better than the best day I ever had living in Miami. Several departments were particularly poorly. The thought of living in the city will become more attractive with each passing day. It breaks my heart. I love this town. It is part of a hard standard of living, the cut of every place of the major rich, favor of the rich opportunity. It is a murder of society and the reality poverty. Be down and the reputation on the street and in the mind. It is sick and homeless and disparate and repressed. I already know. I take it. I'm never moving out. John, I'm going to lose my job soon and I'm going to have to leave where I go. So please tell me where I can find the vibrant, the human, the second, the reverence and the beauty of the city. New York City is my reality, one is the road. The world is Texas and New York City is proud. The only New York Park has to have this performance will be back in September. Thanks so much for listening to my cooperative on the human side of the Peter living it or rescue the real reader can share their pearl, moral and fashion for within the economic download.